The only heir to Korea's leading conglomerate unfortunately passed away in a tragic car accident. This was, of course, a tremendous loss for the entire company, forcing the chairwoman to suppress her grief and urgently summon the shareholders for a late-night meeting. Outwardly, they all appeared deeply sorrowful, but inside, they were secretly pleased, thinking perhaps the chairwoman might hand over control to one of them. However, she had yet to make any official decision. The group began speculating about what the chairwoman would do next, perhaps secretly find an illegitimate grandchild to take over the corporation. Indeed, that was exactly her intention. Besides the late grandchild, she had another one who had been wandering somewhere out in the world, and she immediately ordered her secretary to bring him back. Pil-sung was the grandson the chairwoman mentioned. For years, he had lived a difficult life in the fish market district of Busan, constantly chased by creditors to the point where he had to find ways to run away. While Pil-sung was hastily packing his belongings, the chairwoman's aide arrived. Seeing the young man in front of him, the aide asked if he knew someone named Pil-sung. Mistaking him for a loan shark, Pil-sung lied, saying that Pil-sung had gone out and that he was just a friend. In a rush, Pil-sung didn't want to deal with the man any longer, so he quickly got into a car with his friend to escape. Unexpectedly, the creditors chased after them. The two began to speed up, but midway, their car was blocked by the secretary's vehicle, causing them both to fall. As the creditors were closing in, Pil-sung abandoned his female friend and fled. Since he had already boarded a train, they could no longer catch him. The abandoned girl was furious, shouting Pil-sung's name in anger. At that moment, the secretary realized that the man was indeed the one he had been looking for. After hearing the creditors complain about the money Pil-sung had swindled, the secretary agreed to pay off the debt on behalf of the young master, putting an end to the trouble. Although Pil-sung managed to reach Seoul safely, he didn't have time to celebrate before realizing his money bag was torn. All the money had already fallen out, leaving him completely penniless. In his desperation, Pil-sung tried calling his best friend for help, but the moment his friend heard his voice, he immediately hung up. After checking his pockets, Pil-sung found only a few coins left. He was thinking about how to use them carefully when a girl accidentally bumped into him, causing the coins to drop to the ground. Annoyed, he turned to tell her that when someone bumps into another person, they should at least apologize. Still drunk, Soon-young bowed her head and apologized to him, so Pil-sung decided to let it go. But then he saw her suddenly fall asleep standing right there. Out of goodwill, Pil-sung tried to wake her up and told her to go home and sleep. Unexpectedly, Soon-young's attitude changed. She accused him of stealing her purse and even made a scene right on the spot. Because the two were being too loud, the police came over. Each had their own argument, but neither could prove who the bag actually belonged to, so both were taken to the station. There, the police contacted the girl's family to come and resolve the issue, while Pil-sung was handcuffed and had to sit next to Soon-young, who used his shoulder as a pillow to sleep. Meanwhile, the press learned about the heir's death and began surrounding the chairwoman, asking who would succeed the position, but she didn't reveal any information. The other executives also started to grow suspicious. Normally, the secretary was always by her side, but he was now nowhere to be found, leading them to guess that the chairwoman was trying to bring back the real heir, so they began plotting countermeasures. At the police station, Soon-young's father and older brother arrived to pick her up. The moment Jin-pyo saw Pil-sung's face, he was utterly shocked. Wasn't this the very guy he'd been trying to avoid? Though he tried to act like he didn't know him, Pil-sung still recognized him, so Jin-pyo had no choice but to take him home. But early the next morning, something happened between him and the younger sister. Still half asleep, Soon-young walked into the bathroom without realizing Pil-sung was taking a shower inside. When he saw her, he was completely shocked, but speaking up would only make things worse, so he decided to stay silent and wait for her to leave. Unexpectedly, she noticed him in the end. Soon-young screamed hysterically and grabbed a toilet plunger to chase and hit Pil-sung all around the house. After that incident, she couldn't accept having a strange man living in her home. Soon-young insisted on kicking Pil-sung out, but her parents defended him, saying that she had falsely accused him of stealing her bag and even almost broke his nose. He was already lucky not to be prosecuted. Still, Soon-young refused to agree and kept following her brother, forcing Jin-pyo to drive his friend away. Since she was his sister, Jin-pyo didn't want Pil-sung to cause her any trouble, so he also warned him to stay away from Soon-young from now on. Pil-sung understood that he was just a guest in their house, so he tried to help out by delivering food for their restaurant. However, unfamiliar with the roads, he asked a nearby driver for directions. Before the man could reply, the light turned green, and the man not only drove off but also took the note with the delivery address. Seeing that, Pil-sung hurriedly chased after him on his motorbike. The man then threw the paper straight at Pil-sung's face, causing him to fall on the road, which made him furious. Pil-sung followed him all the way to the man's company. unaware that it was the very company he was about to inherit. But the security guards, they refused to let him in. They dragged him out and chased him away like a beggar. To make matters worse, his motorbike was hit and wrecked, which made Jinpyo angry and forbid Pil-sung from working anymore. With no other option, Pil-sung went to Soon-young to ask for help finding a job, but she coldly turned him down. Right at that moment, Soon-young saw her ex-boyfriend. She really wanted to call out his name, but unexpectedly, he was already with a new girlfriend and even wearing matching rings. Feeling miserable, Soon-young quickly took off her own ring, intending to hide it, but it accidentally rolled right to his feet. Seeing that she was still keeping it, her ex-boyfriend began to mock her relentlessly. Pil-sung, noticing this, stepped in to defend her and wanted to teach the guy a lesson. Not wanting to make a scene, Soon-young tried to stop him. When she couldn't, she slapped him across the face and walked away. Yet, Pil-sung wasn't angry at all. He waited for her after work and even picked up the ring to return it, thinking it must be important to her. But by then, Soon-young had already let go of her feelings. She threw the ring straight into the trash and went with Pil-sung to a bar to talk over drinks. On their way home, Soon-young rested her head on Pil-sung's shoulder and fell asleep. In that moment, she looked so beautiful that he began to feel affection for her. From that day on, Soon-young's attitude toward Pil-sung completely changed. During a family meal, they discussed where Pil-sung should go to find a job since he still owed money for the damaged motorbike. Hearing that the supermarket needed staff for inventory checking, the father thought about asking Soon-young to help him apply, though he worried she wouldn't agree. Unexpectedly, Soon-young herself volunteered to help, surprising everyone. Before long, Pil-sung started working at the supermarket. The employees there were curious about his relationship with Soon-young, so he began telling them all her embarrassing stories, without realizing she was standing right behind him. Furious, Soon-young grabbed a mop to teach the talkative guy a lesson, but accidentally bumped into a man and spilled coffee all over his shirt. Feeling guilty, Soon-young hurriedly apologized and said she would pay for the laundry fee. "If you really feel sorry, then come to a hotel with me." "What did you just say?" While Soon-young was still in shock, Pil-sung suddenly rushed over. He wanted to see what kind of shameless man would say something like that, and realized it was the same guy he had met on the road the other day. Furious, Pil-sung brought up the incident and demanded an apology, but to Jae-woong it seemed like Pil-sung just wanted money, so he took out a few checks. Seeing that the man was looking down on him, Pil-sung grew enraged. He lunged forward and started fighting Jae-woong, causing Soon-young to panic and try in vain to stop them. At that moment the manager rushed over, pushed Pil-sung aside, and anxiously asked if Jae-woong was all right, addressing him as manager. Only then did Pil-sung realize he had caused trouble, because the man was his superior. Naturally, Pil-sung couldn't escape being reprimanded by the higher-ups, and mentally prepared himself to be fired. Unexpectedly, Jae-woong spoke up for him, saying it was only a personal conflict, and that he didn't want anyone to lose their job because of him. Though surprised by Jae-woong's attitude, Pil-sung didn't feel grateful at all. Meanwhile, Soon-young was just as worried, afraid she had offended her superior. When she saw Jae-woong again, she tried to avoid him, but he approached her first and mentioned the laundry fee she still owed. He handed her a business card and told her to call him after work, leaving her uncertain about what to do, so she told her co-workers the whole story. When they heard that Jae-woong was very handsome, her co-workers encouraged her to go meet him. Who knows, maybe it was fate. After all, Soon-young had already been dumped 19 times, so failing one more time wouldn't matter. She decided to take her chances and see what would happen. At that time, the detectives hired by the secretary to find Pil-sung finally reported back. He discovered that Pil-sung was working at a supermarket owned by their very own conglomerate and began approaching him. Secretary Yoon not only visited Jinpyo's restaurant to gather more information, but also invited Pil-sung out for coffee, which made him curious and asked why the man had followed him all the way from Busan to Seoul. Pil-sung assumed he wanted to collect debt, but the secretary explained that all his debts had already been paid off. He even revealed that Pil-sung was the grandson of the chairwoman, which Pil-sung found hard to believe. When he got home, he immediately told everyone about it. As soon as they heard he was supposedly the grandson of a wealthy chairwoman, everyone thought it sounded absurd. They believed it was a scam, saying that organ traffickers had been active lately. Hearing that, Pil-sung became extremely anxious and no longer dared to dream about a better life. Meanwhile, Soon-young attended a party with Jae-woong. However, it turned out to be a memorial gathering for his late friend, the young heir of the Choi Go group. When the friend was mentioned, everyone felt deep regret, and the mood grew heavy. To lift everyone's spirits, Jae-woong volunteered to sing a song. Although the tune was lively and cheerful, Soon-young could see the sorrow in his eyes. In the end, she quietly left the party and placed the laundry money for him before going home. Seeing her come home early and eating like she hadn't eaten all day, Pil-sung grew curious. "Didn't you say you were going on a date? Don't tell me that guy's so rich but couldn't even buy you dinner." Soon-young didn't mind telling him what had happened. Watching Jae-woong sing the same song his late friend loved over and over again, She was afraid that if she stayed any longer, she might fall for him, so she decided to leave. Later, at the supermarket, she overheard her superiors talking about Jae-woong, saying he might become the company's next leader, which made Pil-sung feel provoked. After all, he was supposed to be the chairwoman's grandson. When Pil-sung bragged about his identity, his supervisor didn't believe him, and even joked that if it were true, he'd write Pil-sung's name on his own forehead. Determined to prove himself, Pil-sung immediately went to the company to find the chairwoman. As soon as he arrived at the reception desk, he saw his grandmother, the chairwoman who often appeared in the news. Childhood memories suddenly came flooding back. When he was only 8 years old, his mother had taken him to meet his grandmother and father, hoping she would acknowledge him. But the woman had coldly driven them away, refusing to recognize him as her grandson. Because of that, Pil-sung had given up on being accepted. He quietly went back and asked someone to deliver a small gift to her. It was pouring rain that day, and in that moment, he had never felt lonelier, realizing that even his only remaining family couldn't be together with him. Later, Pil-sung wanted to see Soon-young again, so he returned home. As soon as she saw him, she was furious that he had abandoned work without permission and threw a box at his face. Not dodging, Pil-sung was hit, which made her feel guilty. She helped treat his wound while he told her about his family background, and she began to sympathize with him. Soon-young thought things between her and Jae-woong were over, but right after work, he came to find her. In front of everyone, Jae-woong took her hand and led her away like a couple. Rumors quickly spread, and soon reached Pil-sung's ears. Soon-young went to a restaurant to have dinner with her superior. She had barely sat down when Pil-sung called. Pretending he had dialed the wrong number, she hung up. But Pil-sung kept calling again and again. Feeling annoyed, Soon-young decided to turn off her phone. After dinner, they went to a bar for drinks. Seeing how naive and lively Soon-young was, Jae-woong guessed that she probably wasn't the type to take initiative in relationships and often got stood up by men. Embarrassed, Soon-young denied it and confidently claimed she was experienced in love. Unexpectedly, the next place he took her to was a hotel. That was when Soon-young realized something was wrong. How could Jae-woong bring a woman he had only met twice to a hotel? But in his view of dating, pleasure came first, and emotional development came later. Unable to accept someone like that, Soon-young hurriedly left. She was in such a rush that she didn't even notice she had left her shoes behind. While making deliveries, Pil-sung happened to see Soon-young. She was crying and wearing hotel slippers, which made him furious. Thinking that she had been played by that jerk, he tried to confront the man, but she stopped him and explained that nothing had happened between them. Meanwhile, the restaurant called the manager to ask why the ingredients still hadn't arrived, leaving him confused. It turned out that Pil-sung had forgotten to make the delivery and had taken Soon-young to a cafe to take shelter from the rain. After a while, he suddenly remembered his delivery job, rushed outside, and saw his motorbike being towed away. It was obvious how angry his boss would be. As a result, Pil-sung was fired after only 2 days on the job. When the family heard he'd been dismissed, they were dumbfounded. It was the first time they'd seen someone so good at ruining every job he took. At this rate, no one knew when Pil-sung would ever earn enough money to repay them for the damaged motorbike. On the other side, Jae-woong was trying to contact Soon-young. He wanted to use the excuse of returning her shoes to meet her, but unfortunately, Soon-young had left her phone at home. To make matters worse, it was Pil-sung who answered the call. Realizing that Jae-woong would probably come looking for her, Pil-sung went to the supermarket parking lot, confronted him, and punched him in the face as a warning not to bother her again. Jae-woong, unwilling to take the hit quietly, immediately fought back. The two rolled on the ground, determined to settle it, when Secretary Yoon suddenly appeared. He ordered them both to stop and even bowed to Pil-sung, shocking his son. Jae-woong asked his father why he would bow to that man, and Yoon replied that this was the chairwoman's grandson. Soon after, Pil-sung was personally taken by the secretary to meet the chairwoman. Even though he was finally standing in front of the grandmother he hadn't seen in over a decade, he felt no warmth or affection. The chairwoman didn't waste words and went straight to the point. She would allow Pil-sung to stay and prove whether he was worthy of becoming the heir. If he thought himself unqualified, he could leave. Not wanting to be looked down on, Pil-sung accepted. From that moment, his status completely changed. He became a young master, attended by servants, living in luxury. But the greater the privilege, the heavier the responsibility. Since he had only finished high school, Pil-sung wasn't confident he could ever become a competent leader. At first, he only wanted to come here to see if his father had left anything behind. Now, he regretted it deeply and wanted to go back. However, the secretary told him that this very room was where his father had once lived. Meanwhile, at work, Soon-young's co-workers kept asking her about her date, but she didn't want to talk about such unpleasant memories. Then, unexpectedly, she saw her shoes placed on her locker. Jae-woong had personally brought them back to her. As for him, his resentment only grew. He had already harbored bitterness toward his father for years, and now seeing him continue to serve someone as ordinary as Pil-sung made him furious. His father had devoted his entire life to the chairwoman's family. He wasn't even there when his wife died, so Jae-woong hated him deeply and refused to work under Pil-sung's command. He deliberately waited for Soon-young to finish work so he could take her out for dinner. Pil-sung asked what she would think if he became a director. Unexpectedly, she poured cold water on him. "If you ever become a director, the company will go bankrupt in no time. You'd better stop dreaming and find a proper job." But this time, Pil-sung was serious. He was about to tell Soon-young that he was the chairwoman's grandson when Jae-woong called. Jae-woong wanted her to come drink with him, but Pil-sung grabbed the phone, scolded him, and hung up. Seeing his impulsive behavior, Soon-young got furious. She argued with Pil-sung and stormed off angrily. When she met Jae-woong, she kept blaming him for what had happened that day. Then she sat down to drink with him and told him everything Pil-sung had said to her. Once drunk, Soon-young became noisy, forcing Jae-woong to take her to a hotel. Watching her sleep, he really wanted to kiss her but restrained himself. The next morning, when Soon-young woke up and saw Jae-woong lying beside her, she panicked and quickly checked whether she was still dressed. Seeing her clothes intact, she felt relieved and quietly slipped away. As soon as she got home, her mother chased her around the yard for staying out all night, making her search everywhere and worry. Fortunately, her father defended her, and her mother finally forgave her. That was when she learned that Pil-sung had moved out. He had already paid off the debt for the motorbike and all living expenses from the past few days, leaving nothing to do with them anymore. At the shareholders' meeting, the chairwoman officially introduced Pil-sung as her successor, leaving everyone stunned. But Pil-sung showed no composure of a leader. When bowing to greet them, he accidentally hit his head on the table, making himself a laughingstock in front of the board. Starting today, the chairwoman assigned an assistant to personally train Pil-sung. From business etiquette to dining manners and other skills, he had to learn how to become a proper heir who wouldn't embarrass her. During that time, Pil-sung was extremely busy, yet his thoughts constantly drifted to Soon-young. He wondered how she was doing, unaware that she and Jae-woong had already started dating. Unable to resist his feelings, Pil-sung went to see Soon-young. It had been a while since they last met, so she was curious about what he had been doing lately. Pil-sung thought it wasn't the right time to tell her the truth yet, so he only said that there was someone special in his heart and asked her to come with him the next day. He would introduce her to that person. Coincidentally, Jae-woong also arrived at that place and saw them talking and laughing together. Feeling uneasy, he waited for Soon-young afterward and warned her not to meet Pil-sung again. The next day, an important party was scheduled. Jae-woong wanted to invite Soon-young to go with him, but by coincidence, she already had plans with Pil-sung. When Pil-sung returned home late, it angered the chairwoman. He had gone out without notifying anyone, forcing her to cancel 2 meetings just to find him. She warned him not to act so irresponsibly again, and to stop disappointing those who had expectations for him. Pil-sung blamed Yoo-jung for being too rigid and emotionless. He said he only went out to meet the person he liked. What was wrong with that? How could someone who didn't understand love possibly understand him? Unexpectedly, his words brought tears to Yoo-jung's eyes. It turned out she was the fiancée of Joo-soo, the heir who had passed away not long ago. When Pil-sung saw her returning the engagement ring to the chairwoman, he felt deeply remorseful. He sincerely apologized to Yoo-jung, explaining he never meant any harm. She didn't blame him, and instead reminded him to return 10 minutes before the party began, so he would still have time to pick up Soon-young. Pil-sung hurried off but was still one step too late. Jae-woong had already picked up Soon-young without his knowing. He ran around searching for her everywhere, unaware of the note she had left behind. As the party time drew near, Yoo-jung grew increasingly anxious because Pil-sung hadn't returned. He finally came back but was 20 minutes late. The two quickly changed clothes and rushed to the venue. Yoo-jung had carefully prepared everything and reminded Pil-sung repeatedly. This event would determine whether the shareholders would accept him or not. But on the way to the chairwoman, Pil-sung suddenly spotted Soon-young. Without hesitation, he changed direction and walked toward her. Despite Yoo-jung's repeated warnings, he ignored her completely and only wanted Soon-young to go with him. When he grabbed her hand, Jae-woong grew furious and demanded that Pil-sung let go of his girlfriend. Since Pil-sung didn't listen, Jae-woong threw a punch that sent him falling into the lake. Shocked, Soon-young didn't even have time to react before Yoo-jung jumped in to save him. After being pulled out, Pil-sung, still furious, tried to rush back and fight, but Yoo-jung stopped him. If they caused a scene now, it would turn into a much bigger problem. Pil-sung quickly went to apologize to his grandmother, but after what had happened, the chairwoman was clearly disappointed in him. Jae-woong too was scolded by his father but showed no sign of remorse. Worried, Soon-young went to see Pil-sung but instead met Yoo-jung. Only then did she realize that he truly was the company's heir. There it hadn't just been empty talk. Remembering how Pil-sung once said he would introduce her to the person he liked that day, and now seeing him together with Yoo-jung, she assumed assumed Yu Jung was the woman he meant. News of the heir's public reveal quickly hit the front page. Soon Young's entire family was shocked when they read it. They all regretted not treating him better before. Meanwhile, the chairwoman hadn't spoken a word to Pil Sung since the night before, making him feel extremely pressured. Feeling guilty for embarrassing her, Pil Sung decided to give up his position as heir. He went to say goodbye to his grandmother before leaving, but she refused to let him go. She said quitting so easily was cowardly, and insisted that he must prove his own ability to make up for his mistake. At that moment, Jae-woong came to submit his resignation, wanting to take responsibility for his actions. But before leaving, he expressed his opinion. Everyone who joined the conglomerate came from prestigious universities, highly educated and capable, spending years working their way up to become department heads. Yet Pil Sung, just a countryside bumpkin, had become the company's successor merely because of his connection to the chairwoman, and that was something he couldn't accept. The chairwoman, however, still placed her hopes in her grandson, believing he wasn't useless. She made a wager with Jae-woong. If he was right, she would accept his resignation. But if she was right, she would hand the company over to him, and order Jae-woong to work alongside Pil Sung so they could test each other's abilities. But the two were like water and fire. No sooner had they stepped outside than they started arguing. Since they both loved the same woman, conflict was inevitable. Meanwhile, Soon Young was overwhelmed with guilt for the trouble she had caused the previous night. Now hearing that her boyfriend had resigned made her feel even worse. Yet, Jae-woong remained calm and carefree, even shopping for groceries to cook dinner. As for Pil Sung, it was his first official day at work, but as soon as Yu Jung began explaining the schedule, he got distracted. Knowing he was thinking about Soon Young, she decided to drive him to the supermarket. Upon arrival, the store manager greeted them warmly. Pil Sung hadn't forgotten how the man once said that if he really was the chairwoman's grandson, he would carve Pil Sung's name on his own forehead. So now, keeping his word, the manager wrote the name Pil Sung on his forehead and walked around the supermarket. Pil Sung went looking for Soon Young everywhere, only to find her laughing and chatting with Jae-woong, which infuriated him, and he stormed off. When Soon Young returned, her co-workers told her that Pil Sung had been there earlier, so she called him, but he immediately hung up. Thinking he was looking down on her, she angrily called again and started yelling at him, only to realize that Yu Jung had answered the phone instead, leaving her utterly embarrassed. Pil Sung temporarily put everything aside and went to the company to assume his new position. From that moment on, he was officially a director, and that day he began meeting the employees under him. For each person they met, Yu Jung reminded him who he should be cautious of, especially those connected to Director Kang. However, Pil Sung believed they were all kind and friendly. Since they were older than him, he thought he should show them respect. At that moment, Pil Sung encountered Jae-woong at the company. Seeing him suddenly speak so politely was surprising, and then Pil Sung remembered that he was now Jae-woong's superior. Hearing that Jae-woong was handling a project, he ordered him to bring the documents to his office the next day. The following day, Jae-woong brought the papers, but he also questioned Yu Jung, asking why she was working for Pil Sung when Jusu had only recently passed away. Was she really such a fickle person? But Yu Jung replied that she was just an employee, and everything she did was for her job. Having nothing more to say, Jae-woong went to the hockey rink, a place he and Jusu used to, and visit together. Soon Young was also there to cheer for her boyfriend. Jae-woong asked her, "No matter what I do from now on, will you support me?" Even if it meant going against Pil Sung, Soon Young looked at him with a tender gaze and embraced him. That was her answer. No matter what her boyfriend did, she would always stand by his side. Yet as soon as she got home, she saw Pil Sung already there, bringing many gifts for her parents. Everyone was delighted, and their attitude toward him was completely different from before. Unable to fit into that atmosphere, Soon Young went outside. Seeing that, Pil Sung followed her and apologized for not answering her call that morning. He wanted to take this opportunity to express his feelings, but Soon Young mentioned Jae-woong instead, saying she would always support that man. Even when she misunderstood that Pil Sung liked Yu Jung, he didn't deny it, because he knew there was no longer a place for him in her heart. Feeling deeply hurt, Pil Sung returned home, only to find Jae-woong there. He had just met with the chairwoman and accepted her request. From now on, the two officially became rivals. That night, Pil Sung thought a lot about his grandmother's expectations and Soon Young's words. He became even more determined to change himself and prove his ability to them. The next morning, he arrived at the company early, even before Yu Jung, surprising her. From that day on, Pil Sung would study seriously and keep improving himself to be able to stand up to Jae-woong. Meanwhile, his friend from the countryside read a news article and came all the way to Seoul to find him. Song-ja and Soon Young happened to meet at the reception desk. When she heard the other woman claim to be Pil Sung's girlfriend, Soon Young was completely shocked. Since she was also looking for him, Soon Young invited Song-ja to go together. Pil Sung had just finished a meeting and was walking with some shareholders when he saw Soon Young, followed by Song-ja, making him think he was seeing things. Before he could collect himself, she rushed over, hugged him, and called Pil Sung her boyfriend. In front of everyone, Songja suddenly kissed Pil-sung, leaving them all shocked, while he quickly pushed her away and explained that it was just a misunderstanding. But she kept making a scene, even declaring that she would marry Pil-sung. Afraid she might damage Pil-sung's reputation, Yoo-jung urged him to take Songja somewhere else, so they pulled her out of there. Soon-young, who hadn't yet delivered the gift bag from her superior, had to chase after them. Things became troublesome when Songja refused to leave. Worried that Soon-young and Yoo-jung might misunderstand, Pil-sung tried hard to explain that the two of them weren't lovers, but she wouldn't believe it. Meanwhile, photos of them kissing were posted all over the company, and even caught the chairwoman's attention. They were also spread online, causing everyone to gossip. Furious, the chairwoman prepared to confront Pil-sung, but Yoo-jung was informed first. She and Pil-sung quickly cleaned up the office, while the other two hid under the desk. As soon as the chairwoman entered, she threw the photo on the table and scolded Pil-sung. He didn't know how to explain when Soon-young's phone suddenly rang. Realizing someone was hiding, the chairwoman ordered her to come out. When she asked why Soon-young was there, Pil-sung spoke up to defend her, but the chairwoman still told her to leave. Songja then crawled out from under the desk and hurried after her, leaving the chairwoman speechless. She blamed Yoo-jung instead, scolding her for failing to manage Pil-sung properly and allowing such an embarrassing incident to happen. Seeing his grandmother wrongly scold Yoo-jung, Pil-sung stepped forward to defend her and even raised his voice, which shocked the chairwoman. But for now, she had to order the removal of all the photos from the internet to protect the company's reputation. Pil-sung tried to find a way to politely send Songja back to the countryside, but she firmly refused to go. He had no choice but to ask his best friend for help, requesting Jin-pyo to let his younger friend from the countryside stay at his place. At first, Jin-pyo refused outright and walked away. Unexpectedly, he bumped into Songja and was instantly smitten with her, so he changed his mind. When Soon-young returned home and found Songja staying there, she strongly objected, but her parents had already received 2 months' rent from Pil-sung in advance. Moreover, her brother was starting to fall for Songja, so no one cared about Soon-young's opinion. Feeling frustrated, she went out and happened to meet her boyfriend. Recently, Jae-woong had been going through a tough time, so he wanted to take a short trip to relax and invited her to go on a 2-day, 1-night vacation with him. Soon-young told her co-workers about it to ask for their opinions. Everyone immediately supported the idea and told her to prepare a beautiful nightgown. Meanwhile, business at the supermarket wasn't going well, so Jae-woong suggested closing it to cut losses. But that was the place where Soon-young and Pil-sung's former colleagues were working. Pil-sung strongly opposed it, saying that if the supermarket closed now, those people would lose their livelihoods. The two kept disagreeing, while the other directors took advantage of the situation to stir things up, provoking each stirred of them until they brought their argument directly to the chairwoman. Each side had their own valid points, so the chairwoman made a decision. Within 2 months, if Pil-sung couldn't increase the revenue by 10%, the supermarket would be shut down. Easier said than done. The marketing team had been working hard for 2 years and only managed to increase sales by 5%. Yoo-jung was worried that Pil-sung wouldn't be able to do it, but he was very determined. Meanwhile, Jin-pyo took Songja for a walk around the shopping mall and happened to see Soon-young in a lingerie store. Songja even noticed her buying a very revealing nightgown, so she asked if Soon-young was preparing for a date with a man, making her flustered and leave immediately. The next day, Soon-young was nowhere to be found. Curious, Jin-pyo asked his mother and learned that Soon-young had gone on a trip with a friend. He didn't suspect anything, but Songja did. She thought Soon-young had gone on vacation with Pil-sung, so she angrily rushed to his office. As soon as she saw him, she started scolding him furiously, accusing Pil-sung of deceiving her, but he was completely bewildered, not understanding what was going on. He hurried to explain that he hadn't gone on any trip with Soon-young. If it wasn't you, then who did she go with? Pil-sung immediately thought of Jae-woong and went to find him. Sure enough, Jae-woong had disappeared, but fortunately, his secretary knew where he was headed. At that moment, the two were enjoying peaceful moments together. Jae-woong even surprised Soon-young by giving her a necklace. They were about to share a happy kiss when someone showed up to interrupt them. Pil-sung, who had brought along Yoo-jung and her brother, leaving the couple with no privacy at all. Feeling triumphant, he was about to enter the villa with his assistant when Soon-young angrily threw her shoe at his head in retaliation. No matter what, Jin-pyo insisted on taking his sister home. How could he possibly let her spend the night outside with a man? Soon-young was already 27 years old. She was no longer a child and could take responsibility for her own actions. But in her brother's eyes, she would always be just a little girl. Jin-pyo gave her 2 choices: either pack her things and go home right now, or stay the night with everyone and return with him the next morning. Knowing she had no other option, Soon-young chose the second. She then went to apologize to her boyfriend for ruining their date. Seeing Pil-sung still looking over, Jae-woong pulled her into his arms to provoke him. Not long after, Song-ja also suddenly arrived, making Soon-young even more exasperated. That evening, everyone gathered for a barbecue. Knowing Pil-sung liked Soon-young, Yoo-jung deliberately clung to his arm to get her attention, but it didn't seem to work. Soon-young only waited for Jae-woong, who handed her a can of beer. Behind it was a note telling her to go inside first, and that he would come later. After reading it, Soon-young made an excuse to go inside. She took out that dress to get ready, unaware that Pil-sung had followed her. Outside, Jae-woong was looking for a chance to slip away when he saw Yoo-jung sitting alone. Since it was already cold, he went over to her. Everyone else had already left. Only Yoo-jung remained. She said she was waiting for Pil-sung to come back, which left him feeling disappointed. His late friend hadn't been gone that long, yet Yoo-jung was already so devoted to Pil-sung, which made him uncomfortable. Meanwhile, Soon-young heard a knock on the door and thought it was Jae-woong. Feeling shy, she told him to turn off the light. The only lamp in her room went out, plunging it into darkness. She stepped outside to meet the person, too embarrassed to look him in the face, and Pil-sung said nothing. Not wanting to miss this rare chance, he moved closer and kissed Soon-young passionately. But suddenly, the lights came back on. Everyone entered the room and was stunned by what they saw. When Soon-young opened her eyes and realized the man in front of her was Pil-sung, not Jae-woong, she panicked. Her boyfriend had witnessed everything and stormed out without listening to any explanation. Pil-sung was dragged out by Jin-pyo, who wanted to settle the score. He only had one younger sister. How could he let someone toy with her feelings? But in the end, Jin-pyo realized Pil-sung truly loved Soon-young. Still, he asked his friend never to confess his feelings, because their social backgrounds were now too different. Without being of equal status, there was no way they could be together. Soon-young, anxious and sleepless all night, just wanted to wait for Jae-woong to come back so she could explain. Early in the morning, he did return, but only to collect his belongings before driving away alone. No matter how hard she tried to chase him, she couldn't catch up. After that, the group went back together in the same car, but no one said a word. Since the incident, Pil-sung hadn't had a moment of peace. Seeing him so lost in thought, Secretary Yoon came over to talk and learned what was on his mind. He advised Pil-sung to let some time pass, to wait until the other person calmed down, and then apologize to her. Soon-young kept calling Jae-woong, but he never answered, leaving her worried and unsure of what to do. She turned to her co-workers for advice. Since neither of the two men had contacted her, everyone suggested that whoever apologized first, that was the one she should choose. Right after they said that, news came that Pil-sung had arrived. Soon, Young's heart started racing, thinking he had come to apologize. But to her surprise, Pil-sung coldly walked past her, as if they were strangers. The feeling left her deeply disappointed. He himself was struggling to endure it, waiting for the right time to apologize. During the meeting, Pil-sung couldn't focus at all, but he truly couldn't wait any longer. He left the meeting halfway and ran out to find Soon-young. Seeing her sitting alone, looking so downhearted, made him ache inside. He apologized to her, admitting everything was his fault. Hearing those words, Soon-young burst into tears like a child, releasing all the emotions she had been holding in. After clearing up their misunderstanding, the two reconciled and went to a small diner together, just like old times. However, Soon-young still couldn't forget Jae-woong. His continued silence only made her feel more guilty. Seeing her like that, Pil-sung couldn't stand it any longer. He went to find Jae-woong, sincerely apologized, and took all the blame on himself. He only asked Jae-woong to go see Soon-young, and never heard her again. Finally, Jae-woong came to his senses and went to meet her. It was pouring rain, yet he didn't even bother to hold an umbrella. The moment he saw Soon-young, he couldn't hold back his emotions. "Why do you make me like this?" "Because I don't want to get angry at the woman I love. I've been avoiding you. That's also why I didn't want to love anyone. But you're different. That's why you cherish love, even when it hurts you. You truly love me." The two of them held each other tightly in a warm embrace. Only Pil-sung stood behind them, silently giving his blessing to Soon-young. As soon as he got home, his grandmother called him into the office to scold him for daring to walk out of the meeting, but he wasn't in the mood and went straight to his room. The next day, the director's people published an article about the love scandal between Pil-sung and Soon-young. His grandmother was furious and threw the newspaper in his face, forcing him to see for himself the trouble he had caused. From that moment on, to prevent further rumors, the chairwoman ordered bodyguards to monitor Pil-sung 24 hours a day. All his phones and wallet were confiscated. Except for work-related matters, Pil-sung was forbidden from contacting anyone. As soon as Soon-young saw the article, she rushed to the company. She begged the receptionist to let her meet the director, but they refused with various excuses. Losing patience, she ran straight inside and happened to meet Yoo-jung in the elevator, but Yoo-jung told her to leave immediately. Meanwhile, the chairwoman began an investigation into Soon-young. Once she learned that Soon-young was working at the supermarket, she immediately understood that the reason Pil-sung had been so determined to keep it open was because of this woman. He was being strictly monitored tired and couldn't go outside, so he came up with a plan to escape. Pil-sung ran as fast as he could to shake off the bodyguards and successfully slipped into an elevator. He borrowed a staff member's phone to call Soon-young, only to hear her voice coming from inside the same elevator. When he turned around, it really was her. The two hurriedly pulled each other aside to find a quiet place to talk. They hadn't even managed to say anything when someone came by, forcing them to hide again. People nearby were gossiping about the scandal and Pil-sung's background, speaking with disdain. Hearing their insults, Soon-young couldn't stand it any longer. She angrily burst out, scolding them right there, shocking everyone since she had suddenly appeared in the men's restroom. They hadn't wanted to argue, but the moment they saw Pil-sung, they panicked and immediately bowed to apologize. Soon-young did it to stand up for Pil-sung, but seeing him act as if nothing had happened despite being humiliated made her upset, and she stormed off. When Soon-young arrived home, she found Jae-woong waiting for her. Despite the scandal, he didn't blame her, and even prepared lunch for her himself. But while they were together, just hearing her mention Pil-sung made him furious. He slammed his glass down hard on the table. Only then did Soon-young realize she had said something wrong. She didn't dare stay any longer and decided to leave to calm him down, but he still chased after her. "Do you know how I felt after reading that article? I was so worried about you that I couldn't even work, yet all you cared about was him. How could you be so heartless?" Soon-young didn't know what to say except to apologize. Jae-woong no longer wanted to scold her and simply pulled his girlfriend into his arms. By coincidence, his father came to see him and happened to witness the two of them together. He quickly realized that both Jae-woong and Pil-sung were in love with the same woman. That would surely lead to trouble. Not wanting his son to get hurt, he advised him to end things with Soon-young. Of course, Jae-woong couldn't accept that. Why should he give up the woman he loved just because Pil-sung liked her too? His father should have supported him, yet instead told him to give her up, which left Jae-woong deeply disappointed. As for Pil-sung, although he now lived a life of comfort, dining on luxurious meals, he could only think of the warm dinners at Soon-young's house, always filled with laughter, rather than the gloom he felt here. Even when watching TV, there was no one to fight over the remote with. Being all alone made Pil-sung feel lonely, so he secretly ran away to Jin-pyo's house, hoping to feel that warmth of family again. But except for Song-ja, no one was happy to see him. They all feared that Pil-sung's presence would stir up more rumors and harm Soon-young's reputation. Even she asked him not to come anymore, because it made her feel guilty toward Jae-woong. After that, Yoo-jung came to take him back to face his grandmother. The chairwoman knew that if she continued to ignore the situation, Pil-sung would only sink deeper and lose focus on his work. Therefore, she secretly ordered Yoo-jung to meet Soon-young on her behalf and tell her to resign, and from now on, never see Pil-sung again. Of course, compensation money was also included. Soon-young found their actions completely unreasonable. Why should she be forbidden from seeing Pil-sung? Then Yoo-jung explained that every day, aside from going to work and coming home, all Pil-sung ever thought about was her. That surprised Soon-young. She hadn't realized that she was the one he liked. But news of her resignation quickly reached Pil-sung. He was furious and confronted her, only to learn that it had been his grandmother's order. What disappointed him most, however, was Yoo-jung. How could she blindly follow his grandmother's commands like a puppet? Even though she said everything she did was for his own good, Pil-sung didn't want to hear it anymore. He just wanted to rush out and stop Soon-young from leaving the supermarket. But when they met, she had already packed up her things. She told him she had accepted the chairwoman's money, which meant she agreed to leave, and there was nothing he could do about it. When her mother found out, she was furious. How could they humiliate her daughter like that? She wanted to go find Pil-sung, but Soon-young stopped her. If they went there, things would only get worse, so she begged everyone never to bring it up again. After that, her father went to the company, met Jae-woong's secretary, and returned the money, saying their family would never accept such things. Seeing the way he picked up the bills that had fallen and placed them neatly back into the envelope, the secretary realized they were good people and reported it to the chairwoman. Meanwhile, Pil-sung was kneeling in front of the company gate, begging his grandmother to reinstate Soon-young. Everyone gathered around to watch. Even when Yoo-jung came to persuade him to get up, he refused, forcing the chairwoman to come out herself. As soon as he saw his grandmother, he pleaded earnestly for her to let Soon-young return to work. He said everything was entirely his fault. If she refused, he would not stand up. But the chairwoman remained unmoved and left him kneeling there. At that time, Soon-young was planning to look for a new job when she suddenly heard a familiar voice. Looking up, she saw it was Jae-woong. Knowing she must be feeling down after being fired, he came to see her and offered to take her anywhere she wanted. So, they went to an amusement park and played games together. Thanks to that, Soon-young's mood brightened considerably. Meanwhile, Pil-sung stayed kneeling outside all night, enduring the cold and hunger. Yoo-jung couldn't bear to watch him suffer anymore, so she went to the chairwoman to plead for him. It was the first time she had ever defied her. For his sake, Yoo-jung knelt down and begged the chairwoman to show mercy, asking her to give Pil-sung just one chance. In the end, the chairwoman agreed, but on one condition. From now on, he must never see Soon-young again, and must also increase sales by 10%. Before that, Pil-sung wanted to see Soon-young one last time. He went to the diner to find her, but the people there treated him coldly, especially Soon-young's mother, who wanted to chase him away. Fortunately, Soon-young arrived in time. Being able to see her like this was already enough for him. Pil-sung honestly told Soon-young that from now on, they would no longer be able to meet. Even if they happened to run into each other, they should treat each other as strangers. She already knew that Pil-sung liked her, so she agreed without hesitation. From that moment, they returned to their own separate lives. Even if they happened to see each other at work, they would pretend not to know one another. The relationship between Soon-young and Jae-woong grew closer than ever. He bought her an expensive gift and showed her a kind of affection he had never shown anyone else before. Meanwhile, Yoo-jung submitted her resignation because she realized she had started to develop feelings for Pil-sung. As soon as he heard the news, he rushed to her house, hoping to persuade her to stay. But once Yoo-jung had made up her mind, nothing could change it. After losing Yoo-jung, his most capable assistant, Pil-sung gradually became isolated at work, while Director Kang's faction remained tightly united. They began spreading rumors that the company would shut down the supermarket, causing panic among the employees. They turned their criticism toward Pil-sung, holding him responsible. Everyone demanded to know if the rumor was true, and he had to admit that while it wasn't an official decision yet, if they could increase sales by 10%, the outcome could change. But most people thought that goal was impossible and wanted to escalate the situation. Feeling increasingly cornered, Pil-sung sought advice from Director Kang's people. They couldn't refuse, so they agreed to meet with him. Pil-sung even invited them to Jinpyo's restaurant to make discussions more convenient. Suddenly, Soon-young's parents came back. The moment her mother saw Director Kang, she called out his name, as if the two had known each other before. The director's face turned pale with panic, and he hurriedly left, which only made things seem more suspicious. News about the supermarket employees' mass strike soon appeared in the papers. Even though Yoo-jung had resigned, she had still been quietly keeping track of the company's situation. The chairwoman's wife knew this, so she sincerely advised Yoo-jung to return and help Pil-sung. Seeing how hard he was struggling, she couldn't bear to stand by. But Yoo-jung was still hesitant, unable to decide. That was until she saw a note Pil-sung had taped to the door, which read, "Please come back so that we can work together once more." Deeply moved by those words, Yoo-jung returned to the company and stood by Pil-sung's side again. The employees, who had been planning to strike, suddenly saw their director personally stocking shelves, replacing high-end products with more affordable items suitable for ordinary customers. Seeing his dedication, they were touched and decided to join Pil-sung in trying to save the supermarket. That day, Director Kang's group cheerfully came by, expecting to see chaos at the supermarket, only to be surprised to find it crowded with customers. A place that was supposed to be on the verge of closing down was now bustling with life. Pil-sung even thanked them repeatedly, saying it was thanks to their advice that he was able to achieve this turnaround. It was nearly dinner time, so Jae-woong called Soon-young and invited her out. But since she was still busy with work, she declined. Just then, she ran into Yoo-jung. Yoo-jung had come to apologize for what happened the other day. Of course, Soon-young didn't hold any grudge, and even remarked how amazing it was that Pil-sung had changed so positively. Unexpectedly, Yoo-jung revealed that the reason he was trying so hard to keep the supermarket open was because of her. Soon-young hadn't realized that he was doing so much for her, even skipping dinner and eating instant noodles alone in the storage room. The more she thought about it, the more guilty she felt. She didn't want Pil-sung to work so hard because of her, because she knew all too well the pain of loving someone without being loved back. But for Pil-sung, he didn't need to be loved in return. As long as she was happy, that was enough for him. Just then, Jae-woong appeared. Soon-young was afraid he might misunderstand the situation, but he seemed calm. He gently wiped the tears from her face and told her to go wash up, though in truth, it was just an excuse to send her away so he could warn Pil-sung. It's best if you don't cross the line with her. He didn't hesitate to remind his girlfriend that from now on, whether happy, sad, or in tears, she could only cry in front of Jae-woong. As for Pil-sung, absolutely not. Being forbidden from seeing the woman he loved left Pil-sung frustrated. He invited his assistant out for drinks, and as they drank, he couldn't stop talking about Soon-young. Coincidentally, it was also her favorite restaurant. Just hearing him mention Soon-young was enough to make Yoo-jung sad. She drank so much that she ended up completely drunk. When she was taken home, she could barely stand and even bumped into a streetlight. Seeing that, Pil-sung and the driver helped her inside. Even though she was exhausted, Yoo-jung kept insisting she was fine. Pil-sung asked the driver to buy some hangover medicine, while Yoo-jung, claiming she wasn't drunk, ran into the bathroom to vomit and refused to let him help her. The next morning, when Yoo-jung woke up, Pil-sung had already left, but he had prepared breakfast for her. She ate it, feeling incredibly happy inside. At the company, Jae-woong reported the sales figures to the chairwoman. If they had only increased by 0.8%, with just 4 weeks left before the deadline, if sales didn't reach at least 5% the following week, achieving 10% would be impossible. Jae-woong suggested closing the supermarket early, but Pil-sung strongly objected, insisting he could still reach the target. Jae-woong had long been irritated by people who lacked ability yet talked big. Therefore, he deliberately invited Pil-sung to a party attended by the children of wealthy families, intending to use the occasion to humiliate him. In front of everyone, they purposely spoke English to mock Pil-sung's background. However, their plan backfired when he criticized their poor pronunciation and even lectured them about wasting money recklessly without appreciating its value. Embarrassed by Pil-sung's sharp response, Ja-woong could do nothing. When Soon-young accidentally laughed, he felt even more humiliated, and drank so much that he could barely stand, forcing her to take him home. Even though he was her boyfriend, she still felt that his act of insulting Pil-sung had been wrong. Jae-woong himself didn't understand why he had behaved that way. He was already exhausted from constantly arguing with his father. When his father mentioned Soon-young, Jae-woong thought he would once again oppose their relationship. Unexpectedly, his father told him to bring Soon-young home to meet him. Overjoyed, Jae-woong went straight to the supermarket to share the good news with his girlfriend, only to find her with Pil-sung. Since Pil-sung was injured, Soon-young was kindly treating his wound, though she reminded him of their agreement to pretend not to know each other. She handed him a bandage to put on himself, then stood up and left immediately. As soon as she saw her boyfriend coming to see her, Soon-young was very surprised. When he asked when she would have free time, Soon-young replied, "I've been really busy lately." Since the employees had to work hard to increase sales, she couldn't take a break. Because she, as next node, didn't know that Jae-woong wanted to take her to meet his father, Soon-young refused, which made him very disappointed. He immediately went back to the office and ordered his subordinates to prepare documents about the supermarket sales. This time, he was determined to make it shut down. On the other hand, Pil-sung and everyone else were putting in a lot of effort. They had carried out many promotional programs and handed out flyers to attract more customers. But after a long period of hard work, the results only increased by 2.4%. During the meeting, Pil-sung tried to point out the achievements the supermarket had made, from the steady growth in sales to the home delivery service that customers highly appreciated. But that still wasn't enough. The fact that he couldn't reach a 10% sales increase was undeniable. Jae-woong even prepared documents to prove what benefits would come from closing that supermarket. After that, everyone began to vote, and the majority supported Jae-woong. In the end, the chairman decided to abolish the supermarket. Pil-sung, unable to help everyone, felt deeply guilty. He personally went to meet them to deliver the bad news. Pil-sung blamed himself so much that he didn't even dare lift his head. He scolded himself for being incompetent and unable to protect this place. But no one blamed Pil-sung. Everyone knew he had tried very hard and had always been with them throughout this time. One by one, they stepped forward to comfort Pil-sung, bringing him to tears. After the closure notice was posted, Pil-sung became so depressed that he lost all motivation. He looked dazed, like a man who had lost his soul. Yoo-jung came to his side and lent him her shoulder so that he could feel a little more at ease. Soon-young also wanted to comfort him, but when she saw them together, she gave up. However, things didn't end there. The residents living near the supermarket kept calling the company to protest against the closure. This was definitely a good sign that could help Pil-sung turn the situation around. As long as another meeting could be held and he gained the approval of the other directors, the supermarket wouldn't have to close. Because of that, he went to ask his grandmother to give him another chance. Meanwhile, Jae-woong was feeling very proud of himself. He and his subordinates were making plans to handle the remaining goods before the place shut down. Pil-sung tried to stop him from doing such meaningless things, insisting that the supermarket would surely recover. The two of them, with completely different working principles, refused to give in to each other. Pil-sung always put the interests of everyone first, while Jae-woong worked strictly by the book, relying only on data and never caring how others would survive once the supermarket closed. Even Soon-young felt that he was heartless. Clearly he had the ability to make the supermarket better, yet he chose to push everyone to the edge. These words, when they reached Jae-woong's ears, sounded as if she were siding with Pil-sung against him. Jae-woong coldly told her to go to that man, because he was not someone who would sacrifice everything for love. There were only 2 days left before the meeting, so everyone was busy preparing. Knowing that Jae-woong was collecting documents and meeting with other directors, Pil-sung refused to lose. He began to learn about each person's preferences to win their favor. Director Pat liked sweets, so he gave him chocolates. Director Yu enjoyed exercising, so he went straight to the gym gym. As for the director who valued his car more than his own life, Pil-sung didn't hesitate to wash it for him, just as long as they would vote for him. Even with director Kang, Pil-sung knew exactly what he liked. He gave him a photo of Miss Lee, the woman Kang had secretly loved when he was young. That day, at the store, just by looking into their eyes, Pil-sung had already guessed their past. Pil-sung's efforts also became a source of motivation for the employees. They wanted to contribute and encourage one another to help increase the supermarket's sales. Ye-woong didn't want that to happen, so he repeatedly asked Yoo-jung to persuade Pil-sung to stop. But she was someone who always stood by his side. Even though there were times when Pil-sung felt discouraged and lacked confidence in himself, back when he was still part of the lower class, he used to think that people from the upper class could get whatever they wanted. But now that he was sitting in this position, he finally realized it wasn't easy at all. However, as long as there were people like Yoo-jung and all the employees standing by his side, Pil-sung was willing to do everything for them. Finally, the day of the meeting arrived. Ye-woong was the first to step up and present, but throughout his entire presentation, there was a shareholder constantly yawning, not paying attention to a single word he said. When it was Pil-sung's turn, although he hadn't prepared any documents like Jae-woong, he had something else he wanted everyone to see: the list of the supermarket's employees. They were all the breadwinners of their families. If they lost their jobs now, how would their loved ones survive? Pil-sung didn't ask for much. He only requested an additional 6 months to revive the supermarket. Just as everyone was still hesitating, the employees began to walk in one by one, carrying a stack of files with the signatures of all the supermarket staff. They all agreed to accept only the basic salary and to forego bonuses and allowances during the period the supermarket worked to increase its sales by 10%. Everyone stood united, as one, willing to work hard together with Pil-sung. Their actions deeply moved the shareholders. Because the oldest shareholder spoke up in support of Pil-sung, the others also agreed to give him an additional 6 months. Upon hearing that, everyone cheered with joy. After all their efforts, they had finally achieved their first success. While everyone was celebrating together, Ye-woong, who had lost, had to endure the feeling of defeat alone. The feeling of losing to someone else for the first time in his life. His father believed this was a valuable lesson for his son, and hoped he could learn to accept it. But for someone as prideful as Jae-woong, that was perhaps impossible. At the time when he was feeling his worst, Soon-young was always there beside him, comforting and encouraging him. Their feelings for each other grew deeper and deeper. As for Yoo-jung, although she had always silently supported the man she liked, she still didn't dare to take another step closer to him. Even something as simple as linking arms, Yoo-jung couldn't do. She wanted to have a meal with Pil-sung, so she made up an excuse for him to invite her. But Pil-sung said, "I don't have any money. Grandma confiscated my wallet." Hearing that, Yoo-jung was surprised and asked, "Then what about your salary, Pil-sung?" "It's only now that I realized I also get paid." Pil-sung went to the ATM to check, and indeed, there was money in his account. Overjoyed, he called Yoo-jung to tell her, and promised to treat her to a grand meal. They agreed to have dinner together on Saturday, which also happened to be Pil-sung's birthday. The first thing he did after receiving his salary was to buy gifts for his family. Both his mother and grandmother had their own presents. Pil-sung was excited, eagerly waiting for their reactions. However, during the meal, the atmosphere was as dull as usual, which left him a bit disappointed. Although the chairwoman didn't show much emotion outwardly, she was actually wearing the shirt that Pil-sung had given her, and even praised him for being a good boy in front of her daughter-in-law. Meanwhile, in Soon-young's family, after hearing that she had a boyfriend, they sent Jin-pyo as a representative to meet him. Since Jin-pyo was Soon-young's older brother, Jae-woong had to show respect. He didn't dare go against him and just kept drinking as Jin-pyo did. But Jin-pyo was someone who could drink endlessly without getting drunk, while Jae-woong couldn't handle much, so he quickly passed out at the table. With no other choice, Jin-pyo took Jae-woong back to his home. When Soon-young saw that, she panicked, afraid her parents would get angry. But fortunately, nothing serious happened. The next day, when Jae-woong woke up and found himself in an unfamiliar house, he was confused. Before he could gather his thoughts, Jin-pyo walked in and handed him some clothes to change into. It was also the first time Jae-woong had ever worn sportswear like that. Everyone looked at him in amazement because he looked so different, while Jae-woong felt extremely embarrassed. At that moment, Pil-sung suddenly came to visit and was even more surprised when the two of them ran into each other there. Ignoring Jae-woong, Pil-sung quickly sat down at the table. He took out the gifts he had prepared and handed them to each person. Everyone was delighted and thanked him warmly. Seeing how well-liked Pil-sung was by the whole family, Jae-woong felt jealous. When the aunt complimented Pil-sung for having a good appetite, and he asked for another bowl of rice, Jae-woong immediately followed, and even called her mother, as if to provoke Pil-sung. After their guests left, the whole family sat down to talk about Soon-young's boyfriend. Her mother thought he was tall, handsome, had a stable job, and came from a good family. Wasn't that the ideal type? Jin-pyo didn't object either, because from their interaction yesterday, he found Jae-woong to be very polite. Hearing that, the mother had no reason to complain anymore. She even wanted to start discussing marriage, but Soon-young quickly changed the subject. Around that time, Madam learned that Pil Sung's birthday was coming up and told Yu Jung to keep it a secret from the chairwoman. When Yu Jung asked why, Madam said it was for his own good. At the company, Pil Sung happened to overhear a conversation between Song Ja and Yu Jung. They were planning to organize a surprise birthday party for him, so Song Ja told Yu Jung to keep it secret from Pil Sung, unaware that he was standing right behind them and had heard everything. During this time, all of Pil Sung's daily activities were reported to the chairwoman by Yu Jung. The chairwoman wanted to know whether Pil Sung was still seeing Soon Young or not. After hearing from Yu Jung that the two rarely met, the chairwoman felt somewhat relieved. On Pil Sung's birthday, Madam specially made seaweed soup, but when the chairwoman asked why, she simply said it tasted good and didn't mention the birthday at all. Coincidentally, the chairwoman had an important meeting that day, but her secretary was on leave, so she asked Yu Jung to accompany her. Since she might return very late and wasn't sure if she could make it to her appointment with Pil Sung, he told her he would wait. As for Song Ja and Jin Pyo, they couldn't come either because their parents had plans to go out and told the two of them to stay and watch the restaurant. Pil Sung went to the restaurant alone and waited for a long time, but no one showed up. Even Soon Young was busy working until 10 p.m. Everyone was unaware of the other's situations, leaving Pil Sung to spend his birthday all by himself. When Soon Young finished work and called Song Ja, she found out that Pil Sung was still waiting for everyone, so she hurriedly ran to meet him. Jae Woong was waiting for his girlfriend to finish work. When he saw her just ahead, he happily called out to her, but Soon Young didn't hear him at all. He then took out his phone to call her, but she said she had something urgent to do and cancelled their date. At that moment, Pil Sung was feeling very disappointed for having to spend his birthday alone when Soon Young appeared. Her presence alone comforted him greatly. Soon Young didn't forget to bring a gift for Pil Sung, a cute little keychain. It made him so happy that he rushed forward to hug her. Yu Jung arrived, and, seeing the two of them so close, couldn't bring herself to interrupt. Only when Song Ja and Jin Pyo brought out a cake to celebrate did Yu Jung feel less awkward and join in the fun with everyone. That day became the most memorable birthday in Pil Sung's life. He silently wished that everyone would remain close just like this forever. But one person's happiness became another's disappointment. Jae Woong had followed Soon Young and found out why she cancelled their date. He had originally wanted to take his girlfriend to meet his father, but time after time, he failed because of Pil Sung. What disappointed him most, however, was Soon Young herself. She had deceived him so many times. Jae Woong asked Soon Young where she had gone today. She didn't dare say she had attended Pil Sung's birthday, and only replied that it was a friend's birthday. Seeing that Soon Young had lied, Jae Woong couldn't stand it anymore and broke up with her. From that day on, he completely cut off contact with her, spending his days drowning himself in alcohol. When his father came to visit, he saw the house filled with empty liquor bottles. Not long after, Jae Woong managed to pull himself together and returned to work as usual. When he met Pil Sung in the elevator, he calmly wished him a happy birthday. However, he noticed that the birth date listed in Pil Sung's records was different from his actual birthday, which made Jae Woong feel very strange. At that moment, his father suddenly sent him a note, asking Jae Woong to come and see him. When he arrived and saw Soon Young there as well, he couldn't understand why his father had arranged it. His father didn't want to argue with him. He only wanted to mend things between the two and said to Soon Young, "Since childhood, Jae Woong has grown up without a mother, living in sadness and lacking affection. Because of that, he doesn't understand much about love. Please try to understand him and stay by his side. That's all I wanted to say to you." As soon as Mr. Jae Woong finished speaking, he left the room, giving the two of them time to talk and understand each other better. After learning about his past, Soon Young couldn't bring herself to leave Jae Woong alone. Before the two could even reconcile, they suddenly heard a shout. The waiter, Mr. Yoon, had collapsed and was quickly taken to the hospital by his family. Worry and anxiety were written all over Jae Woong's face, as his father was the Seiza's only family he had left in the world. His trembling hands, shaken by fear, were gently held by Soon Young as a form of comfort. The chairwoman also received the news shortly after. She was deeply worried about Mr. Yoon and wanted to go to the hospital, but Pil Sung told her that he would go instead and call to update her. When he arrived, Jae Woong was displeased. Upon hearing that the chairwoman had sent Pil Sung, he became even angrier. He accused her of spending her whole life giving orders to his father, and now that he was sick, she still wouldn't visit him, calling it cruel. Jae Woong became so emotional that he almost got into a fight with Pil Sung. Fortunately, Soon Young and Yu Jung stepped in to stop him in time. However, from Pil Sung's birth record, Jae Woong had already learned that he was a fake grandson. He told Yu Jung, leaving her completely shocked. No matter how hard she tried to deny it, she couldn't stop Jae Woong from wanting to expose the so-called heir of the corporation. After listening to Jae Woong's reasoning, even Yu Jung began to worry about Pil Sung's true identity. She wanted to take advantage of a drinking occasion with him to ask about his mother, to see what kind kind of woman she was, and whether she could be the type to forge documents just to make her son the heir. But no matter what the outcome would be, Yu Jung would still choose to stand by Pil-sung, because she believed he was not a liar. The chairwoman, however, was completely unaware of everything. She already regarded him as her own grandson, loved Pil-sung deeply, and was preparing to register him into the family household. Madam, seeing how much the chairwoman valued Pil-sung, couldn't bring herself to reveal the truth. Now, the grandmother completely trusted Pil-sung and wanted to hand over the company to him. She summoned Jae-woong as well, because according to their original agreement, if Pil-sung could prove his ability, she would grant him the right of inheritance. But Jae-woong objected. He said he hadn't yet verified Pil-sung and requested an additional week. Yu Jung was truly afraid that the reason he asked for more time was to investigate Pil-sung's background. If she could stop this man, she would do whatever it took, but he refused to give up such a good opportunity to overthrow Pil-sung. Jae-woong resented both him and the chairwoman, believing they were the ones who had caused his father to work himself sick. Meanwhile, Director Kang, who had always secretly loved Miss Lee, often brought acquaintances to support her restaurant. Day after day, he kept bringing in customers, keeping the place constantly busy and exhausting everyone. Even Song Ja and Jin Pyo complained, begging Pil-sung to do something, saying that with this many customers every day, they couldn't handle it anymore. At the company, everyone was praising Pil-sung, which made Soon-young think of all the things he had quietly done for her. His sincerity had long touched her heart, but she couldn't abandon Jae-woong at this moment. Even though she couldn't return his feelings, Soon-young still wanted to give Pil-sung one last gift. She went out with him to have fun and stroll around the city, enjoying an incredibly happy time together. The sky quickly darkened, and it was time to say goodbye. Soon-young hoped that from now on, Pil-sung would never care about her again, and that they would treat each other as strangers. Perhaps that would be better for both of them. At the train station where they had first met, they now parted ways. Soon-young held back her tears so that Pil-sung wouldn't see them. It wasn't until she got on the train that she burst into sobs. Pil-sung wasn't doing any better. He was so devastated that he sat alone in front of Yu Jung's house until she found him. From his words, she understood how Pil-sung felt at that moment. But perhaps what Soon-young did was for his own good. Pil-sung should let go, so no one would feel awkward. For now, the company should remain his top priority. But before Pil-sung was officially added to the family register, something happened. That day, Jae-woong saw the chairwoman ordering her staff to clean out his father's office. This made him furious. His father was still in the hospital, his life uncertain, yet she was already being so heartless toward him, he couldn't stand it anymore. He immediately went to see the chairwoman and told her that Pil-sung was not her biological grandson. If he was born on the 16th of October 1975, then he couldn't possibly be your son's child, because from 1973 until June 1975, Pil-sung's father was abroad, so how could he have made a woman in Korea pregnant? Hearing this, the chairwoman began to feel increasingly unsettled. She immediately called Pil-sung to see her and asked if his real birthday was indeed the 16th of October 1975. Although Pil-sung didn't understand why his grandmother suddenly asked such a question, he still answered honestly, which left her in shock. It turned out that everything Jae-woong said was true. She told everyone to leave the room so she could be alone. The chairwoman had loved Pil-sung so deeply, but now, faced with such a devastating truth, she was so overwhelmed that she could barely stand. While Pil-sung still didn't understand what had happened, Jae-woong was feeling triumphant. He had finally gotten revenge on the person he had always despised, and he didn't hesitate to tell Pil-sung that he wasn't the chairwoman's real grandson. What shocked him even more was discovering that Yu Jung had known about it all along but kept it from him, making Pil-sung feel like a fool. Now, he couldn't even face his grandmother anymore, and the shock of it all caused the chairwoman to fall ill. When Pil-sung learned what had happened, he brought a basin of warm water and placed a towel on her forehead, hoping she would recover soon. He gently told her that even if he could no longer stay by her side, she should take good care of her health. The next morning, no one could find any trace of Pil-sung. He had quietly left, returning everything that never truly belonged to him. But before leaving Seoul, Pil-sung wanted to see Soon-young one last time. Holding her tightly, feeling her warmth, he said his final goodbye. While Pil-sung was missing, Yu Jung anxiously searched for him everywhere. She even went to see Soon-young to ask if she had seen him. Meanwhile, the people at the company took advantage of the situation to seize leadership from Pil-sung. They had long viewed him as a thorn in their side and wanted to get rid of him, and now, this was their once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But no one expected that. Even though the chairwoman knew Pil-sung wasn't related to her by blood, she still loved him deeply. Ignoring everyone's objections, she continued to choose Pil-sung as her successor. That was why Yu Jung was out searching for him on her behalf. The weather grew colder, older, and since Pil-sung had nowhere to go, everyone became increasingly worried. He was wandering outside, planning to call an acquaintance in Busan to ask for help before returning. But unexpectedly, he got his belongings stolen by a thief. With no other option, he reported the theft to the police, and while waiting, he had no choice but to stay there and sleep overnight. Yoo Jung sent people to Busan to look for him, but when she was told that Pil-sung hadn't gone there, she guessed he must still be in Seoul. Since the day Pil-sung disappeared, Soon-young had been extremely worried. She threw herself into work non-stop in an effort to forget everything. Even when Jae-woong invited her to lunch, she declined because she didn't have the appetite for anything. After a long search, Yoo Jung finally received news about Pil-sung. Hearing that he was at the fish market, she immediately rushed there. Seeing the man standing before her, it was indeed Pil-sung. Yoo Jung was overjoyed. However, even though she had found him, Pil-sung still had no intention of returning. Knowing that he was just an imposter, he no longer had the face to go back. Perhaps the free and carefree life he was living now suited him better. Yoo Jung repeated everything Pil-sung had said to the chairwoman, and she too had no intention of forcing him if he didn't want to return. But Yoo Jung was different. She persistently went to the fish market every day to persuade him. Yet every time, Pil-sung was busy and often ignored her. He advised Yoo Jung to go back, saying that this kind of place really wasn't suitable for someone like her. Still, Yoo Jung didn't give up. She was so determined that Pil-sung could only sigh helplessly and threaten to run away if she kept coming. But Yoo Jung confidently told him he wouldn't leave because Soon-young was still here. During this time, because she worried too much about him, Soon-young lost her appetite, couldn't eat properly, and began losing weight, becoming visibly thin. Her whole family was deeply worried about her. They also wanted to know where Pil-sung was now and how he was living. Before long, Yoo Jung went to see her and told her about Pil-sung's situation to ease her mind. She even offered to arrange for the two of them to meet, but Soon-young refused. For her, just knowing that Pil-sung was safe was enough. Not long after, Jae-woong received good news from the hospital that his father had regained consciousness. Overjoyed, Jae-woong rushed to see him, only to find that the chairwoman was already there. She wasn't as heartless as he had always thought. It was just that the way she showed her care for others had always been quiet and unspoken. As soon as the chairwoman left, Jae-woong asked his father how he was feeling. Seeing that his father's face looked much healthier, he was overjoyed and wanted to share the good news with Soon-young. Ever since his father went in for surgery, he had planned that once his father recovered, he would propose to Soon-young so his father could feel at ease. But when she received his proposal, Soon-young didn't feel happy. Instead, she was filled with hesitation. She wandered back home in a daze and went into her room, where the police had recently returned a bag to her because her phone number was written on it. Inside was Pil-sung's diary. As she turned the pages filled with memories of the two of them, tears welled up in her eyes. She finally understood just how deep his feelings for her were and realized who the person she truly loved was. Without caring about anything else, Soon-young ran as fast as she could to find Pil-sung. Meanwhile, her boyfriend, who had carefully planned his proposal, was happily showing his friends the ring and saying that he would propose to her that evening. But when he called her, she didn't pick up. Jae-woong left a voicemail saying he would wait for her, but perhaps Soon-young would never hear it, because at that very moment, she had already found Pil-sung. Being reunited like this was not easy. After everything they had been through, Soon-young no longer wanted to be separated from Pil-sung ever again. Shyly, she asked him to stay by her side, making Pil-sung feel as if he were dreaming. He even asked the man sitting at the next table to hit him to see if it was real. The pain from the punch proved it wasn't a dream. Overjoyed, Pil-sung jumped up and cheered. He couldn't believe he had finally waited long enough for this day to come. After saying goodbye to Pil-sung and heading home, Soon-young checked her phone and saw many missed calls from Jae-woong. She immediately went to the bar to meet him. Facing his heartfelt proposal, Soon-young didn't know what to say, except "I'm sorry," because the man she loved was no longer him. Rejected, Jae-woong was left in a daze, unable to understand why Soon-young would do such a thing. He refused to give up and continued to look for her, trying to win her back. Seeing how stubborn he was, Soon-young had no choice but to say it clearly. From now on, she would no longer go anywhere with him, because she was in love with Pil-sung. Unable to bear the pain of losing the woman he loved, Jae-woong went to find Pil-sung and vent his anger. As soon as he saw him, he rushed in and started throwing punches, catching Pil-sung completely off guard. He wanted to fight back, but when he heard Jae-woong mention Soon-young, he let him take out his anger instead. In the end, the two sat down and talked like men, sharing a few drinks to ease their emotions. One day, the madam personally went to see Secretary Yoon because she had an important matter that needed his help. In the past, her husband had suffered from leukemia, so many tubes of his blood were still kept. If possible, she wanted Pil-sung to have a DNA test so everything could be made clear. Because during all this time living with him, the madam had grown very fond of Pil-sung. Jae-woong, who was standing behind the door and overheard the conversation, felt even more disappointed. He couldn't understand why everyone loved Pil-sung so much, while he himself was just an ordinary man. But soon enough, Jae-woong would have his own answer. During a price negotiation with suppliers, they hoped Jae-woong could make some concessions and offer a more reasonable figure. After all, both sides had been cooperating for many years. Couldn't he agree for the sake of their relationship? But being as rigid as he was, Jae-woong still refused to yield, making them angry enough to walk out. All of them simultaneously stopped supplying goods to the supermarket, causing the situation to become serious. With no products left to sell, customers grew angry and filed complaints noisily. Only then did Jae-woong realize that he had made a huge mistake. He tried to negotiate with them again, but all attempts failed. The company was almost beyond saving, and he was in utter despair. Jae-woong only wanted to see Soon-young again and be by her side. He tried everything to hold on, even lowering his pride to beg her, but she still coldly walked away. Seeing the situation become more and more serious, Yoo-jung could only turn to Pil-sung for help, asking him to come back and save the company. Otherwise, all the employees would lose their jobs. Of course, Pil-sung couldn't just abandon everyone. He went to the bar where Jae-woong was drinking to try to lift him up. The problems Jae-woong caused were naturally his to take responsibility for, but at that moment, Jae-woong no longer had any spirit left. Seeing him like that, Pil-sung had no choice but to take matters into his own hands. He quickly resumed his position and went to meet the suppliers under the title of director. In front of the supplier, Pil-sung was extremely polite. He sincerely apologized and hoped to be forgiven. He was even willing to kneel down right there, but the supplier said he would only forgive them if Jae-woong came to kneel as well. While Pil-sung was still confused, Jae-woong appeared and knelt before the supplier. He knew it was all because of his arrogance and recklessness, so he begged for forgiveness. Pil-sung also knelt down beside him, and finally, the supplier agreed. Deliveries to the supermarket resumed immediately. Everything gradually returned to how it used to be, and through this incident, Jae-woong learned a valuable lesson. He no longer resented Pil-sung but instead acknowledged his abilities. However, this time, instead of returning to the chairman's house, Pil-sung moved into Soon-young's home to ask for a place to stay. At first, her mother strongly opposed the idea because there was still a young daughter in the house. But aside from her, everyone else agreed to let Pil-sung stay, so the decision was overwhelming. He and Soon-young finally had the chance to be together, but their relationship still had to be kept secret from the family. Meanwhile, the chairwoman decided to add Pil-sung to the list of candidates for the leadership position. She knew he still refused to return to the company, so she personally went to the fish market to bring him back. No matter what outsiders said, in the chairwoman's eyes, Pil-sung would always be her grandson. If she didn't truly care for him, she would never have humbled herself to come all the way here to bring him back. Moreover, after the supplier incident, many shareholders recognized Pil-sung's talent and voiced their support for him. However, Pil-sung was still hesitant. He believed he wasn't suitable for the position his grandmother had offered. Therefore, he didn't attend the meeting. Besides him, there were two other candidates, Director Kang and Jae-woong. His absence meant that Pil-sung would be removed from the list, but then, Pil-sung's close driver came all the way to the fish market and showed him a video from the supermarket employees. Everyone expressed their hope that Pil-sung would return to them, which deeply moved him. As soon as Pil-sung returned to the company, he was greeted with warm cheers from everyone. He quickly changed his clothes and appeared at the meeting, taking everyone by surprise. From now until the final meeting to decide the new leader, there were only 10 days left, and during that time, Pil-sung was determined to prove that he was worthy of the position. Grandmother no longer forced him to return home, but allowed Pil-sung to stay at Soon-young's house, and Yoo-jung would be the one to represent her in assisting him. She immediately sent people to bring in furniture, turning Pil-sung's simple room into a much more comfortable workspace. However, Pil-sung still felt a bit insecure, and wasn't sure if he could shoulder such a heavy responsibility. Luckily, Soon-young was always by his side to encourage him. During all the nights he stayed up working late, she was there to take care of him. Their love grew deeper with each passing day. They spent time together happily, laughing and enjoying each other's company. Even Jae-woong, when witnessing such moments, couldn't help but feel lonely. He tried to go back to his old life of partying to forget Soon-young, but he simply couldn't. As for Yoo-jung, spending every day with Pil-sung made her feelings increasingly hard to control. Seeing him asleep, she couldn't resist the urge to reach out and touch him. But suddenly, Pil-sung woke up, startling her. Yoo-jung knew very well that Pil-sung and Soon-young were dating, so she could only bury her feelings deep inside her heart. Meanwhile, Pil-sung was enjoying a truly happy time with his lover. When no one was home, the two wanted to be a little more affectionate. Just as they were about to share a sweet kiss, they heard the others returning. Startled, Soon-young immediately pushed Pil-sung, causing him to fall to the floor. On this side, Yoo-jung reported the recent work situation to the chairwoman. Seeing how hard he was working, the chairwoman was very pleased and hoped that in 3 days during the meeting, Pil-sung would perform well. Meanwhile, outside, Secretary Yoon informed the madam that the DNA test results would be ready in 3 days. By then, they would know whether Pil-sung was truly an imposter or not. While the two were talking, the chairwoman happened to overhear them. Only now did she realize that they had been hiding such an important matter from her. However, no matter what the results would be, in her heart, she had long regarded Pil-sung as her real grandson. The one who loved him deeply was not only the chairwoman, but also Yoo-jung. She always looked at him with such affection that anyone could tell Yoo-jung liked Pil-sung. Of course, Jae-woong also noticed it early on. Out of concern, he warned her to control her gaze if she didn't want Pil-sung to find out. But neither of them realized that Pil-sung had been standing outside and heard everything. Knowing that Yoo-jung liked him, he was very surprised. Yet in front of her, he pretended not to know anything to avoid making things awkward for both of them. As for the chairwoman, before the meeting took place, she carefully instructed the secretary that once the test results were ready, he must bring them to her first. No matter what the outcome was, she hoped he would keep it a secret for her. At that time, everyone at Soon-young's house gathered together, so her mother asked about her current relationship with Jae-woong. Hearing that he had proposed to Soon-young, the whole family thought she would agree, but to their surprise, Soon-young said she had turned him down. Everyone was shocked and asked why. Could it be that she had someone new? But Soon-young kept denying it. Right then, Pil-sung came back, which made everyone start to get suspicious. She also became more cautious and warned him to keep his distance from her from now on. Since Pil-sung brought home a lot of documents that day, Soon-young wanted to help her boyfriend, so she stayed in his room to assist him. The two worked so hard that they eventually fell asleep without realizing it. The next morning, her mother came to look for her, but couldn't find her anywhere. She and the rest of the family started searching, while at the same time, the two of them just woke up. They were horrified to realize they had slept in the same room. But before they could sneak out, the whole family rushed in. At that point, there was no way to deny anything. The mother was furious, grabbing a broom to chase and hit both of them, creating a chaotic scene. After calming down, she asked when the two had started dating. She needed to make everything clear before deciding whether to allow their relationship or not. Meanwhile, the father completely supported them, because after spending time with Pil-sung, he understood what kind of person he was, so he trusted him to take care of Soon-young. This matter seemed to be settled, leaving only the issue of Yoo-jung's feelings. After finding out that she had darker feelings for him, Pil-sung tried to avoid meeting her to prevent awkwardness. But continuing to run away like that wasn't a good solution either. Pil-sung gathered all his courage to face Yoo-jung and told her that he had known about her feelings for him for a long time, but he simply couldn't return them. He was afraid of hurting her, but thankfully, she accepted it and only asked for one thing: to have a dance with him. That moment of closeness was also the moment she chose to let go of her feelings, as she cried on his shoulder. On the day of the meeting, the secretary brought the DNA test results for the chairwoman to see first. After that, she appeared before everyone and suddenly asked Pil-sung to step outside, leaving him confused. The reason she told him to leave was because she wanted to inform the shareholders that Pil-sung was not her biological grandson. In the past, some had objected because of this, so he would be removed from the list of candidates. But at that moment, the largest shareholder unexpectedly spoke up. He disagreed with eliminating Pil-sung just because he wasn't the chairwoman's grandson. He believed that what mattered most in a leader was not only talent, but also integrity. And in his opinion, Pil-sung was fully qualified to be a candidate for the position. Most people agreed, and they proceeded with the vote. Director Kang received 1 vote, Jae-woong 10 votes, and Pil-sung 12 votes. The result was completely overwhelming, and he officially became the new leader of the Choi-go group. Although Jae-woong had initially been Pil-sung's rival, he now accepted becoming his companion, helping Pil-sung lead the corporation toward further growth. When the employees received the good news, they were overjoyed. Everyone came to congratulate Pil-sung, though he himself still couldn't believe it was real. Pil-sung feared he might not be capable enough to bear the responsibility, but the chairwoman believed he could do it, and all his efforts over time had already proven that. Moreover, she had added his name to the family registry, treating him as her real grandson. She hoped that he would take over the lifelong business she had built. Ever since he took office, Pil-sung's workload had become endless. Every day he attended countless major and minor events, to the point that he no longer had time for Soon-young. It took her quite a while to arrange a dinner with him at home. Knowing that Pil-sung had been promoted, her mother prepared a celebration meal. However, he was busy attending a banquet with the tycoons, and hadn't returned yet, making the whole family wait so long that they grew anxious. More than 2 hours passed, and still, there was no sign of him. making the mother furious. But they didn't know that Pil-sung had collapsed from overwork. Since Soon-young couldn't reach him, she went to the company to look for him but only found Jae-woong. It wasn't until Yoo-jung came to see her that Soon-young learned Pil-sung had collapsed and was now recovering at the chairwoman's house. She was very worried but didn't feel comfortable visiting him directly, so she sent a letter to encourage Pil-sung. Thanks to that, his mood greatly improved, and he soon returned to work. Under the pressure of his workload and tight schedule, Pil-sung thought about reforming the company so he could have more time to rest. At the same time, he often went undercover to the warehouses to learn about the employees' daily lives and hear their complaints so he could adjust company policies accordingly. It had also been a long time since Pil-sung last saw his lover, so today he especially invited her to attend a party. However, when she arrived, the staff didn't allow Soon-young to enter because she didn't have an invitation. She told them that Pil-sung had invited her, so they went to look for him, but he couldn't be found. As a result, Soon-young waited for a very long time, yet the two of them still couldn't meet. During this period, because of the many reforms Pil-sung implemented, the company's order was disrupted, causing great dissatisfaction among the directors. They wanted to join forces with Jae-woong to overthrow Pil-sung, but backstabbing was not something Jae-woong would ever do. Jae-woong not only refused but also told Yoo-jung to remind Pil-sung to be careful. At that time, they even held a meeting to criticize Pil-sung. With all the pressure piling up, he became truly exhausted and couldn't stand to listen any longer. He stood up, walked out of the meeting, and left everything behind. All he wanted was to run to the person he loved, because only when he was with Soon-young could he feel peace. Not long after, at the shareholders' general meeting, Pil-sung officially took office as chairman. He stepped onto the stage and gave a speech before everyone. The past 3 months had felt like a dream to Pil-sung. They gave him many memories and valuable lessons. Without everyone's support, he wouldn't have reached this day. He wanted to express his sincere gratitude to them. At the same time, this was also when Pil-sung decided to resign and return to the simple life he once had. As time passed, Soon-young's family restaurant became more and more successful. Jinpyo and Songja also fell in love and became a happy married couple. Jae-woong found his new love. He bumped into her in the parking lot, the same place where he first met Soon-young. As for her, she set off for Busan to visit Pil-sung, continuing the love story between them that had yet to be completed. And with that, the story comes to an end. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, and share to support us. Thank you for watching.